Let's take you to our big story unfolding in Midrand. That's where the IEC is set to begin their own Electoral Code of Conduct signing ceremony. But first, take a look at this.
Start the national anthem. I ask you all to observe the necessary decorum. Thank you. I ask you to remain standing, please, and observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you very much. You may be seated. May I please invite the Chief Electoral Officer of the Electoral Commission, Mr. Sai Mamabulo, to make his remarks, please. Sai.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Chairperson of the Commission, Mr. Musotu Moyapia, esteemed Commissioners, Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Mr. Lechesa Tsenodi, Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Mr. Amos Masondo, Minister in the Presidency, Ms. Kumbusjo Nchabeni, Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Mr. Roland Lamula, Deputy Minister of Police, Mr. Castle Matale, Deputy Minister of Home Affairs, Mr. Njabulo Nzuza, Deputy President of the Supreme Court of Appeal, Justice Paula Peche, esteemed leaders of political parties, former commissioners of the IEC, Dr. Brigalia Bam, Advocate Pensi Tlakula, Ms. Togo Mpumlwana, Mr. Terry Tselani, Justice Tami Makanya, heads of our constitutional institutions, Professor David Musoma, Dr. Mbava, former senior leaders of the IEC, Professor Manza Mkunu, Mr. Norman Duplessis, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Chairperson of the Board of the SABC, Mr. Katuchelo Ramukumba, Chairperson of the Municipal Demarcation Board, Mr. Thabo Manyoni, Director General in the Presidency, Ms. Pindile Baleni, Heads of Departments and Directors General in our system of government, representatives of the AU here present, esteemed members of the executive, management, and staff of the Electoral Commission, good morning, everybody. South Africa's democracy is 30 years this month on the 27th of April. As we commemorate the 30th anniversary of our democracy, it is vital to reflect on one of its abiding successes. That is, the conduct of regular, credible, free and fair elections underpinned by values of multipartism and universal adult suffrage as enshrined in our Constitution. Elections are a foundation to our electoral project. Elections foster legitimacy in governance. They foster legitimacy as well as electoral accountability. They foster political representation and macro political stability and development. They are therefore part of our national character, for without which our democratic project is nugatory. Today we stand before South Africa and her people to affirm our readiness to conduct an election which accords with constitutional yardsticks and international norms. We give this affirmation of readiness alive to the enormity of the challenge that rests on our hands. We stand ready to assiduously ensure that we do not let motherland down, for otherwise history will have a deleterious account of our charge of this task. This, ladies and gentlemen, is our readiness report. Following the proclamation of the election day by the President, we published an electoral timetable on the 24th of February. The timetable is an important statutory instrument that guides the performance of various electoral activities. It provides cut-off times for the performance of these important electoral activities. In a sense, the timetable is the statutory guardrail for the preparation of elections. It is a guiding light for electoral preparation. Compliance to the provisions and terms of the timetable is not an option, but such compliance is peremptory for contestants, voters, and the electoral administration itself. At the heart of an electoral enterprise such as ours is citizenship participation. Following 2 rounds of registration weekends and a sustained campaign promoting online registration system, the voters' roll was certified on the 12th of April. The certification of the voters' roll constitutes the edifice upon which a credible election is predicated. The certified voters' roll stands at 27.7 million voters. South Africa has not seen this level of registration since the voters' roll was first established in 1999. Since we launched the online registration portal in July 2021, a whopping 2.4 million voters have used the portal either to register for the first time or to change their registration details. Owing to the efficacy of the portal, the registration of young persons is beginning to show initial signs of recovery. Measured against the estimated voting age population, the registration coverage in the 18 to 19-year-olds stands at 27%, whilst coverage stands at 48.6% in the 20 to 29-year-olds category. Coming off a low registration base, the historical underrepresentation of young persons on the voters' roll is showing welcome signs of amelioration. This can only bode well for the future of electoral democracy in the country. To accord with historical trends, there are more female voters than there are men. 15.3 million voters are female, whilst male voters account for 12.4 million. The provinces of Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal jointly account for 44% of the voters in the country. Gauteng has 6.5 million, whilst KwaZulu-Natal has 5.7 million voters. The province of the Eastern Cape comes in third position at 3.4 million. In line with established electoral practice, electronic copies of the voters' roll with redacted identity document numbers to align with the National Framework for the Protection of Personal Information has been advanced to participating parties. This will enable contestants to canvass votes, but also to enable them to verify the accuracy of the voters' roll. Consistent with the provisions of the election timetable, on 12 April, we will publish a list of all voting stations as well as their locations. We have now grown the network of voting stations to 23,292. In ordinary terms, this means the Electoral Commission is providing a service at over 23,000 points across the country. This fact and the overriding importance of providing a consistent service at all voting stations accentuates the complexity of the forthcoming election. Voting stations are now contracted with lease agreements concluded with landlords. There are 954 temporary sites where physical infrastructure is not available. Temporary amenities are in the process of procurement to ensure that voters who do use these facilities also vote in circumstances that affirm their inherent human dignity. Hitherto, public education effort has been directed at improving registration levels. With the voters' roll now certified, the efforts will turn to balloting education. In this regard, the effort is about presenting the 3 ballots to be used in the election and what each of these represent, and the eventual translation of valid votes into the 10 legislative assemblies. Naturally, the delivery of voter education should be through multiple media. The traditional face-to-face effort is supported by over 2,500 democracy education facilitators who engage with communities in the wards. Radio, including community radio as well as television, are also vital media for delivering voter education. The frequency of our educational material will increase to ensure that every voter is reached before the election. Surely, it would be remiss not to mention social media because a significant proportion of the electorate receive news and engages politically and socially on social media platforms. This, therefore, will constitute part of the mix of platforms to provide voter education and, importantly, animate registered voters for participation in the elections. Thank you very much. I was competing with the environmental element. A credible electoral framework must make provision for those who are in special circumstances. This is precisely because one's constitutional right to vote does not dissipate merely because of special circumstances. Thus, varied mechanisms to access special voting arrangements are availed to the electorate. Special vote applications for purposes of home visits and voting station visits will open on 15 April and close on the 3rd of May. Home visits are intended for those voters who are infirm or otherwise unable to travel to voting stations. Voting station special votes are for everyone who is unable to attend to their voting station on election day. Special voting will be conducted on the 2 days preceding election day. Furthermore, special votes will also be administered at diplomatic missions of the Republic. As matters stand, 58,000 voters have registered on the international segment of the voters' roll. These voters will be provided for at the diplomatic missions of registration. South Africans who are registered on the local segments of the voters' roll, but who may be temporarily absent from the Republic, have an opportunity to notify the Commission of their intended absence and the mission where they intend to cast their ballot. Such notifications must be lodged with the Chief Electoral Officer by the 22nd of April. As of today, 9,100 South Africans who are going to be outside the Republic have submitted such notifications. This special voting will happen at missions about 10 days ahead of general voting in the country. Furthermore, voters who will be outside of their voting station of registration do not lose their right to vote. Such voters may still access the voting process by notifying the Chief Electoral Officer that they will not be at their voting station on election day and where they will be casting their ballots. Parliament intervened in 2021 with this requirement to fortify controls in the voting process. Previously, you could just rock up essentially at any voting station. On this occasion, Parliament has provided that you access that voting opportunity by way of prior notification. And those notifications will close on, or rather the opportunity for those notifications will close on the 17th of May. The modalities for notification include physical forms at the local office of the Commission or online on the website. as of today, just under 20,000 notifications have been recorded. In line with the dictates of the timetable, the close of nomination of candidates was on 8 March. Provisional indications are that 70 political parties and 11 independent candidates have succeeded in submitting their nominations. 15 political parties are contesting all tiers of the elections. In total, there are 14,903 candidates vying for 887 seats in the National Assembly and provincial legislatures. In the nature of candidate nomination processes, there are disputes which the Electoral Court is seized with. This may marginally alter the number of contestants as well as the number of candidates. The Commission will, on the 10th of April, publish the final list of candidates as well as list of parties who are going to be contesting the various tiers of the election. There are 52 parties on the national compensatory ballot. This means decidedly that this ballot will be configured as a dual column ballot. The rest of the 18 other ballots will remain single column ballots, as has been the case since our founding elections in 1994. We will then proceed to issue certificates of candidature to candidates on the 12th of April. The conclusion of the candidate nomination process on 10 April will enable the intractable task of printing ballot papers for the election. In this election, there's going to be 19 different ballot configurations. As indicated, there will be one national compensatory ballot, or what we refer to as the PR ballot, 9 different province to national ballots, or colloquially regional ballots, and a further 9 different provincial ballots. Needless to say, the ballot paper is the ultimate resource for recording the voter's choice. It must thus be produced so as to facilitate the choice of the voter rather than befogging that choice. The Commission will be printing approximately 30 million ballots for each of the 3 ballot types. This enormous task, which includes printing, stitching of the ballots into books of 100, and accurately labeling, must be completed within a 30-day window period. Over 95% of logistical supplies for the elections are already at hand. An election is obviously a logistical undertaking of serious proportions. We are thus in the process of distributing 1,873 tons of material between our different warehousing and storage facilities across the country. An election is about systems, the law and processes, as it is about people. We are in the final stages of appointing 202,000 voting officials who will discharge the responsibility of administering the electoral process in the voting stations. These staff are being subjected to a hybrid training involving online modules as well as practical modules. Cumulatively, This training endeavor is intended that staff have an appreciation of the impartial execution of their responsibility, as well as competency in administering the voting process. In order to improve the quality of the counting and the completion of result slips, the Commission is instituting a new category of staff who will support the presiding officer during the counting process. The recruitment criteria for this staff is slightly different from the rest of other staff, as high levels of numeracy are mandatory. 3 such staff are being appointed for each voting station and each substation where we operate a voting center. The media remains a key cornerstone of credible flow of information during the electoral process. We implore journalists and community reporters to report truthfully, ethically, and professionally without fear or favor. Let your news items promote electoral democracy and political stability in the country. The professional and ethical conduct of those in the media is even more important in these days of disinformation, misinformation, and other digital harms. We urge political role players to respect the vital role of the media in the information ecosystem. The safety of journalists is our joint responsibility. For without a well-informed citizenry, our desired objective of a credible election is rendered a nullity. We urge all citizens not to contribute to creation of stability by participating or perpetrating digital harms. Citizens, when they participate by distributing what is not true or factual or even verified, they perpetuate disinformation on their social media accounts. It is important to know that this may cause harm to other human beings and vitiate the credibility of the electoral process. This caution is even more apt for those of us in the service of the Electoral Commission. For every word we utter and every post we place has ramification for the credibility of the electoral process. So as members of staff of the Commission, we need to be absolutely circumspect in the manner in which we use social media platforms. Except that when Arsenal has won, you may post. More importantly, political contestants must not be the generators of false information that may cause harm to the credibility of the process. In conclusion, let us collectively uphold the ideals of democracy and demonstrate our commitment to credible and transparent elections. As leaders of political parties and as citizens, let us lead by example, fostering an electoral environment characterized by trust, integrity, and respect for all. For its part, the Electoral Commission commits itself to pronounce an electoral outcome rooted in the choices of the South African voters. As with any electoral contest, the choice of the voter is paramount. And it is that choice of the voter that the Commission commits to pronounce as an electoral outcome. Ke a leboga.
That's my phone. Thank you very much, CEO. When you were acknowledging our guests, we omitted one person, Deputy Judge President of the Gauteng High Court, Judge Aubrey Lidwaba. Our apologies, sir. It doesn't lessen how much we value you. With that remark, may I please invite the Chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Mr. Msutu Miepa, to make his remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, esteemed colleague and Program Director, Dr. Nomsa Masuku. Fellow South Africans, colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please permit me to stand on the protocol as established by the Chief Electoral Officer a moment ago. It is amazing to be in good company. And I think every one of you this morning looks so beautiful. Today, thank you. Today, we stand on the threshold of a significant moment in our nation's history. We mark 3 decades of a legacy bestowed upon us by generations of tireless leaders and ordinary citizens. We recognize the invaluable gift of democracy, a treasure earned through struggle, sacrifice, and unwavering determination. This gift demands our utmost reverence, protection, and cultivation. One of the most profound expressions of our commitment to this legacy is the conduct of regular, free, and fair elections. As the Electoral Commission of South Africa, we address you today with a sense of immense pride and yet with a greater sense of determination as we seek to ensure that the 2024 national and provincial elections remain as credible as those we have consistently delivered over the past 30 years. Our unwavering dedication to conducting quality elections has been instrumental in fostering the steady growth and confidence of our democracy here and further afield, even amidst the challenges posed by the global COVID-19 pandemic. With freedom comes great responsibility. The Constitution affords political parties, independent candidates, and citizens the freedom to contest elections for public office. However, this freedom carries with it a significant amount of responsibilities. Our founding leaders foresaw this and enshrined these responsibilities of political parties, independent candidates, and all contestants in the elections, but joined also citizens in various statutes to keep their conduct in alignment with our pluralistic society's vision. Today's ceremony holds profound significance as we address leaders of political parties, candidates standing in these elections, and those that are represented in our various structures of political liaison. We ask them to stand tall even as they pledge their allegiance to the code for these forthcoming elections. This code that we are going to have pledges made to provides the framework for conduct that is consistent with the vision of our democratic forebears, who envisioned a society at peace with itself and all its constituents. It is a statutory instrument for realizing free and fair elections, requiring profound political leadership in its observance and in truly living the letter and spirit of this code. As leaders, we bear the responsibility of guiding our nation towards a vision of peace and tranquility, one that will bring to our nation great success and dignity. While the leaders present here today represent a fraction of the 325 political parties contesting elections, each party, regardless of size, representation, as well as the independent candidates participating, must adhere to the code that is prescribed. They must commit to the principle of free expression and democratic debate. They must recognize the authority of the Commission in the conduct of these elections. Beyond adherence to the code, parties, candidates, citizens must alike actively promote the awareness of this code and support efforts to educate voters.
All right, Masutu Miepede, who is the chairperson of the IEC, giving the keynote address as we wait, as in some ways with anticipation, to see the different political parties and independent candidates sign the Electoral Code of Conduct. All of this taking place at the Gallagher Convention Centre in Midrand, which is the new results centre, by the way. You might remember, traditionally we used to be in Pretoria, and it seems, at least from the signs that we're now noticing, that all of that is going to move to Midrand.